to the Jayda InStitches show. I've had a lot of requests lately to do more baby related stuff. So today I thought we would do something really special. These are very fancy newborn baby booties. So they're made with a newborn to a size 3-month foot in mind. And they might look a little complicated, but like lots of the things I like to do here on the show, they look fancy, but they're actually pretty simple once you get the stitch work into your fingers. This is a variation on the crossback stitch. It's a really cool stitch, and it makes a really pretty bit of fabric, especially for something fancy, like a little pair of newborn baby booties. So that is what we're going to do on the show today. And of course, you can decorate your booties with a little bit of ribbon or some pretty cord if you want, especially if they're for very kicky little feet that might want to kick your booties off. So, without further ado, let's grab our hooks, grab our favorite baby style yarn, nothing too tiny, and let's head to the craft table and make ourselves a very delicate little pair of baby booties. In order to make our baby booties, you're going to want a DK weight yarn. So this is a 3-ply acrylic yarn. DK weight is sort of similar to a worsted weight, but it's a little bit thinner. So like I say, this is a 3-ply as opposed to a 4-ply. It's kind of somewhere between a size 3 and a size 4. So if you can find a DK weight baby yarn. And this is a 50-gram ball, but you can probably get several pairs of booties out of a ball this large. So you're going to want some of that. I'm using a 4.25 millimeter hook, or a G6. You're going to want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and your fingers. And once you've got all those things, we can get started. We're going to begin by chaining. So we have to start with a slip knot. And you want to make sure that moves around comfortably on your hook. It's not too tight or too loose. And we're going to chain 39. 36, 37, 38, 39. Okay. Once you've got 39 chains, and you might want to double check them because you definitely have to have 39 in order to start this properly. The first row is really easy. There's your first chain. You're going to skip that, identify the next chain, and single crochet into it. In fact, you're going to single crochet into each chain all the way back to the beginning, and at the end of row 1 you will have 38 stitches. So your foundation chain row is 39 chains. The 39th chain counted as your turning chain. You're going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook in each across, and you'll have 38 when you catch back up with me at the end of row 1. Alright, you should have 38 single crochets all the way across for row 1. Now we're going to begin the pattern stitch. So we're going to chain 3 to start because we are now working in double crochet. So chain 3, turn your work, and I want to remind you that the chain 3, especially in this pattern case, counts as a double crochet, which means that this first stitch here is already taken up by this pretend double crochet. So when you chain 3 at the beginning of a row, this stitch is already spoken for, so ignore it. The next or first stitch in your row that you have to concern yourself with is this one right here. So this stitch is accounted for because this chain 3 counts as a double crochet. So the first thing we're going to do is identify the next stitch and skip it. We're going to move to the next stitch and double crochet into it. So to begin, it's going to look something like this. You're going to double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So your work looks something like this now. Here's your chain 3. There's the skipped stitch, and you've double crocheted into the next 3. And here comes the cool part. We are going to double crochet into that skipped stitch So deep breath. This isn't difficult. Just keep your fingers loose. You're going to wrap your yarn and you're going to reach all the way back to that skipped stitch. You might want to look at the other side just to make sure you got the whole thing. So like that. So you reach all the way back like this. Put your hook through it. Pick up your yarn just like you would if you were regularly double crocheting. And this is why I say keep your fingers loose. You want to pull up enough slack so that you can work your double crochet at the same height as the rest of them. So you're going to get this lovely long cross happening across the 3 that you've already done. And then you just double crochet like normal. Wrap, pull back through the first 2 loops, and it might be a bit crowded, so take your time. Wrap and pull back through the last 2. And that creates the cross back. Pretty cool, huh? So now we just continue doing that. This stitch was worked. See how it's pulled if I pull up on my work? So the next stitch is this one, and we're going to skip it. So you skip the next stitch, double crochet into the stitch after that one, and double crochet into the next 2 as well. And cross back. We're going to double crochet into that skipped stitch. So wrap your yarn, identify that skipped stitch, put your hook through it, maybe look at the other side just to make sure you got it all. Grab the yarn and pull back up through that skipped stitch and give yourself enough slack that you can create a double crochet up at the same height as the rest of your work. And then just double crochet as normal. And like I say, it's a little bit crowded there, so you might want to slow down when you're doing the cross back part. There we go. Let's do one more together. So if you pull up, you see that that stitch was worked. So this is the stitch you skip. And these are the next 3 that you're going to double crochet into. So skip a stitch, double crochet into the next 3 stitches, and cross back. Identify the skipped stitch, wrap your yarn, go all the way back and through it, pick up the yarn on the other side, pull it up, make sure you've got enough slack that you can create a nice regular double crochet, and take it easy because those loops want to sort of stick together. There! I just love this stitch. It is so funky looking. Okay, this stitch was worked, so that's the skippable stitch. Double crochet into the next 3 after that skippable stitch. 1, 2, 3. And cross back. There's the skip stitch. I'm going to wrap my yarn, reach back, pull up a loop in that skipped stitch, pull up enough slack that I can make a nice regular double crochet. Take it easy here because these little things want to stick together. And there you go. You are going to continue this pattern of skip a stitch, double crochet into the next 3 stitches, and then cross back by double crocheting into the skipped stitch. Alright, I'm just working my last sort of set here. This is my last cross back stitch. And that brings me to the end of the row. Now at the end of the row, there's one more stitch. And we're going to finish the row like we started it with a single or 1 double crochet. So you're just going to double crochet into that last stitch. And your first, or I should say your second row, but your first row of pattern is going to look something like this. So you begin with a double crochet, that counts, or I should say begin with a chain 3 and that counts as a double crochet. And then you skip a stitch and work your pattern. Skip a stitch, work your pattern. All the way across, And you should have 9 of these cute little, they look like hay bales all the way across for row 2. We're going to work 2 more rows exactly like this one, and I'm going to walk you through row 3 here. So we're going to chain 3 to start because we're still working in double crochet. Flip our work, and remember, this stitch is spoken for because this counts as a double crochet. This is the stitch we skip. These are the 3 that we double crochet into. Alright, there's my 3 double crochets. I look back, there's my skip stitch. Now I'm going to cross back into it. Pull up a loop, make sure I've got enough slack, complete that last double crochet for that set, and then move on. And what's going to happen is that all of your little hay bales are going to sit right on top of each other. Boom, 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 boom. So you'll know if your pattern is off if they look like they're kind of sitting sideways or overlapping the little holes. This is the stitch, this is the stitch we skip. This is so difficult to say. So we're going to double crochet, we're going to skip this one and double crochet into the next 3. And then we're going to identify that skip stitch, there it is, and we're going to cross back into it. Pick up that loop and double crochet. And there, you can really see it now that I've completed 2 of them. So on one row, your cross is going to go one way, and on the back, so the row that tracks backwards, your cross is going to go the other way. And of course, eventually, it's going to look like this. Cross back. Okay, so you're going to complete this pattern for rows 2, or yes, rows 3 and rows 4. Rows 2 and 3 of the pattern, not to be so confusing. Just skip a stitch, double crochet into the next 3, and then cross back and double crochet into that skipped stitch. Work that pattern all the way to the end of the row, double crochet in the last stitch, which in this case will be the top of the chain 3, and then do it all over again for the next row. And I will see you at the end of row 3. Alright, I've just done the last little hay bale in my 3rd row, and I've come up on that chain 3 that I started the 2nd row with. So this is technically my last stitch. So I'm going to identify the top of that chain 3, and I'm going to double crochet into it. Because remember, you want to start and end every row with what counts as a double crochet. So if it's a chain 3, it counts as a double crochet. But if you're at the end of the row, it's actually a double crochet. So we're going to do one more row exactly like this. We're going to chain 3 to begin, flip our work. This one's spoken for. This one's the stitch we skip, and then we double crochet into the next 3, and then repeat the pattern by skipping a stitch, double crocheting into the next 3, and then crossing back and double crocheting into that skipped stitch to give that hay bale sort of effect of this cute little crossback pattern. So go ahead, work that row. I'll see you at the end of it, and then we're going to change things up a little bit for the upper part of our bootie. Alright, I'm just coming up on the end of my 4th row. There's the chain 3 that I began the previous row with, so I want to make sure that I put my last double crochet into the top of it. Alright, that is the bottom part of our bootie complete. Now we're going to change things up a little bit. So we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to slip stitch into the next 9 stitches. So we're going to use that first one because nothing's been done to it yet. So that counts as the first one. 2, 3, 8, and 9. Number 9 should bring you up to what looks like the sort of the stitch that sits right on top of this open space here. So you see how your open spaces all line up? So number 9, your 9th slip stitch, should bring you right on top of that space. So it looks something like this. So these are going to remain unworked. Now we're going to chain 3, and we're going to continue with the pattern. But we're only going to work the pattern to this, the beginning of this hay bale. So you're going to, this stitch has been worked, this is the stitch you skip, this next stitch is the one you double crochet into. So just to get you started. So what we're doing, and we're going to cross back here, is that we've gone from a total of 9 hay bales in our first 4 rows, or our first 3 pattern rows. So we've gone from a total of 9 hay bales, and I count these as hay bales, and we're going to go down to a total of 5 hay bales. Skip a stitch, double crochet in the next 3. So once you've made 5 total hay bales, then we're going to move on. Okay, so to illustrate what I'm talking about, there's the chain 3, so we skipped these first 9, chained 3, continued with our regular pattern. I've got 5 hay bales in there, and now because I have to finish with a double crochet, I'm going to double crochet into the very next stitch, which is this one. So what we're doing is we're going from a total of 9 hay bales, and now we're cutting off the first 2 on either end. So now we've got 5 hay bales, and we're still going to keep our double crochets on the end of each row. So now we're going to chain 3, flip our work, and we're going to repeat the exact same pattern, so nothing changes from here on out. You're going to make sure that you don't think about this stitch. You skip this stitch, double crochet into the next 3, and this is the same old pattern now, back and forth. You're going to chain 3 at the beginning of each row, double crochet once into the last stitch of each row, and you're only going to do this row and 1 more in the pattern stitch before we are finished the crochet part of our funky little baby booties. So go ahead, continue to work that pattern of skip a stitch, that one there, double crochet into the next 3, and then cross back and double crochet into that skipped stitch. All the way across, you'll have 5 hay bales at the end of this row and the next one. Don't forget to double crochet into the last stitch on each row and begin each row with a chain 3. Okie dokie. So I've completed, our first row was the single crochet all across. Then we did 3 rows of the pattern hay bale stitch, or the cross back stitch. Then we shortened things up, so we slip stitched in 9, chained 3, and we worked this cross back stitch for 5 hay bales, skipped the last 9 or 8 stitches there, double crocheted into the next stitch, turned, and now we've worked 2 more rows of the pattern cross back stitch. So you should have 3 long rows of the pattern cross back stitch and 3 short rows of the pattern cross back stitch. Now we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and you're going to single crochet into that first, so that very first stitch there, and in each across. And you should have 22 stitches. So if you're keeping track, we began with 38 stitches in row 1, and we're going to finish with 22 stitches at the end of row 7. Alright, that is our final row. Row 7 is just single crochet all the way across. So now we're going to cut ourselves a longish tail. I'm going to say, 60 centimeters might be enough, or 2 feet. And then you're just going to fasten off, so pull the whole thing back through that loop on your hook. And you can switch your hook for your yarn needle. And here comes the fun part. You're going to fold it in half. Oh my goodness, look, it's a bootie. You're going to thread up that long tail on your yarn needle. And this is the simple part. you're just going to hold it together and you're going to work. So I like to go through the top 2 stitches first. So I'll line up this one and that one. So see, that's the top 2 whole stitches. That's my first whip stitch. And then I'm just going to pick up a little piece of the side on both sides. So just like that, all the way down. I'm going to try and evenly space them so that there's not too many gaps. So just like that. And that's all you do all the way down the inseam, or the inside of the heel, across the instep. And now remember, these are sort of real stitches, so you can line them up and sew them together. Around the toe, down the toe, and then all the way back across the bottom. So one long seam, and then just weave in all your ends, and you're done. Unless, of course, you want to add a little ribbon. Alright, I've whip stitched all the way down, across the toe, around the toe, and all the way up the bottom of my sole. And now, because I'm using a grabby sort of yarn, I'm just going to weave in my tail by picking up some of these single crochets across the bottom here. So I'm going to weave it in one way and then skip over the last little loop that I came out of and put it back through all of them going back. And that will keep my yarn from coming undone. So I don't have to put in a knot. But if you're using a slippery bamboo or silky sort of yarn for your baby booties, or you don't have a whole lot of tail, or you're just worried that a lot of repeat washings is going to see it come out, then you can give it a little tiny knot before you weave it in back and forth. So I'm going to leave that up to you, especially if you feel that some of it looks a little, a little on the loose side. That is something that you can decide on. But that is all the crochet and all the stitch work done. So now all that's left to do is to turn it right side out, and you don't have to worry because we worked this bootie back and forth and back and forth. Both sides are exactly the same. So this way you can keep the stitching on the inside, and then you can flip it inside out. So you can go ahead and make a second bootie exactly the same way as the first, because there are no rights or lefts here, and tiny little baby feet don't really care. So go ahead and make a second one. And if you're going to be adding a little bit of ribbon, and this is entirely up to you, you can just weave it through the little spaces that are left in that. So I call this sort of what I would call this the eyelet row. You can just weave it in and out through those little spaces that are naturally formed between the haystacks. And you can use a long piece of ribbon or a short piece of ribbon. But there you go. It's always nice to add a little bit of color. And if you've got particularly kicky little feet that these are going on, then you might want to just tie them on. So there you go. You can add a little bit of ribbon to the top too. And that is how you make a simple but rather fancy looking pair of newborn baby booties. And that is a delicate pair of crossback baby booties. Isn't that neat the way they go together? And these whip up so quick. Once you get the hang of it, you can make up pair after pair after pair. And I know a lot of you like to donate things to the maternity wards in your local hospital, and this is a very lovely little pay it forward kind of thing that you can donate to your local hospital or your local charities. So that is the baby bootie with the crossback stitch. I hope you enjoyed making these with me today. If you did, make sure you give this video a big like and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also share our crafty videos with all of your crafty friends on all of the socials. Until next week, everybody, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a kickin' good week. Bye, everybody.